السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. صدق الله العظيم. Okay, welcome to this lesson on Sura al Qaari'ah. Now, just to put this in context, this is going to be at the end of time, or the end of human life on this earth. And Qaari'ah means something that's going to rattle the very nature and existence of the earth and of life as we know it. And it's going to be one of the biggest catastrophes that this world will ever have observed or experienced. Now, linked to Al Qaari'ah is Az-Zilzaal, which was done earlier, the Az-Zilzaal Surah, where it talks about an earthquake. And I think for the purposes of introduction to Al Qaari'ah, let's just look at Az-Zilzaal in a very quick sort of recap kind of a way. So this surah, which was done before, is talking about a terrible earthquake, one of its kind, one that never was experienced before. And the entire world is going to be rocked or shaken to its core. And when this earthquake happens, the earth is going to uplift from it all the burdens that it held. In other words, all the human beings that were buried over time, and everything else in the earth is going to be turned like literally upside down. And man at that moment is going to say, what is the matter? What's going on here? What's, like it's something they never experienced. Huh? And on that day, the earth will relate all her stories, all her news, all the chronicles of time, whatever happened to her on this earth as man trod and carried on with his life. And Allah will obviously have inspired the earth to do this, that the earth will be able to speak and bear witness and testimony to what we have done and achieved, or how we've abused the earth, or whatever the case might be. So on that day, what's going to happen is mankind is going to be divided into different groups, and each group or each individual will be shown their book of deeds. If you receive it in your right hand, you'll be good to go to Jannah, and if not, you'll have to face the consequences. And the last two, I talk about how things are going to be weighed on that day. So every action that you've done in this world while you're alive, and if you talk of an atom, which is the smallest particle that we know of, that you can't see with the human eye, if you just did an atom weight of good, you're going to see the reward for it. And likewise, if you did an atom's weight of evil, you will see it. Now, to sort of conceptualize what an atom is, maybe if you look at, if you take just full stop here, this at the end, this full stop, is like the size of the grain of a mustard seed. Now, obviously, an atom is much smaller than that, but if you think of one dot is going to be the measurement of good and evil deeds on that day. And it's going to be so precise because Allah Himself is going to be sitting as the ultimate judge over all this, what's happening and who's going to be rewarded and who's not. So it's going to be a very apocalyptic moment. This is going to be the final destruction of the earth. Right? And what we need to imagine is this is going to be one quake that is going to be one of its kind. It's going to shake the entire world as we know it all at once, and the world is going to self-destruct. And if you look at the fact that we've got about 6 billion people living on this earth currently, and obviously we don't know when it's going to happen, but if it happens, say, today or tomorrow, then 6 billion people are going to be killed instantly. That's me, you, and everybody else we know. Right? Now, the other thing to think about is that, and this is just rough estimates, I don't know how to calculate this, but if they estimated that from the time of Adam alayhi salam till today, approximately 117 billion people have lived on this earth. And they say the beginning of time was something like 200,000 BC. So it's a long period of time, but everybody from whoever traversed and lived on this earth is going to be sort of woken up and being going to face this consequence. So what I've done now is I've just looked at earthquakes just to give you a sense of what we're talking of. Now, the five largest or most impactful earthquakes happened, and I'm just going to talk of the one. This Valdivia one in Chile happened in 1960. It measured 9.5 on the Richter scale. Now, the Richter scale measures the seismic activity under the earth. So it could be under the land or even under the seas, where something like a tectonic plates, they shift under the earth's bowels or in the earth's bowels, and that causes, if it happens in the sea, then it causes a tsunami or the sea quake, which is equivalent to an earthquake on land. Or if it happens on land, then we have an earthquake coming out, happening and shattering everything that we know of. Right? Now, talking about this Valdivia earthquake, they say it killed about 1,700 people, it injured 3,000, which isn't much. I mean, we're talking of 6 billion that this earthquake at the end of time is going to be killing, right? And it displaced about 2 million. It caused about $500 million worth of damage. And then it spawned, in other words, from that earthquake came out a tsunami. And the tsunami started off, if you look at this world map here, the round globe here, Valdivia is in Chile, which is the west coast of South America at the bottom, which is almost like on the same latitude like South Africa, but going west. And Valdivia is there, and if you look at halfway around the globe, which is Japan, they could feel the impact of that earthquake in Valdivia right there in Japan. Now you can imagine the Qudra and the power of Allah, that the waters and the tectonic plates under the earth shifted to such an extent and caused such movement on the seas that you could feel this tremor as far away as Japan, right, which is halfway around the globe on the other side. And what you can't see is there's Philippines that's located just below Japan, but off the surface. If I turn this globe a little more, you'll see Philippines also, which is even further. Now, the distance from Valdivia to Japan is about 18,000 kilometers. Now, if you had to take a direct flight in a plane, it's like a 24-hour flight going halfway across the world. Now, this is just to show you the impact of what happens one part of the world and how it impacts the other half of the world or somewhere else far away. And they say the rupture of this earthquake was more than 1,000 kilometers long. Now, even that, you can imagine what a big chasm it created, either in the seabed or on the land surface. If it's 1,000 kilometers, 1,000 kilometers is like a distance from here to Harare, or from here to maybe Beaufort West from Johannesburg, right? And they say 2 days after this quake, the nearby volcano, there's another one, Puihui, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. This one erupted, and this thing sent ash and steam up to 6 kilometers up into the atmosphere. And this happened daily for a period of several weeks. So you can imagine the impact of this hot lava that's coming out from the bowels of the earth out onto the surface. And if you are anywhere near in that surrounding, and if the lava has to touch your skin, you'll just burn. Your hair will singe off your body, and it will just be the end of you. So this is just to give you one earthquake that we experienced very recently in 1960 and the impact it has. Now, what causes earthquakes? Obviously, the quake event can happen under sea or under land, and it depends on the depth of the earthquake, the positioning of the tectonic plates underneath, and if it happens in the sea, then it causes a tsunami, a huge wave on the top, and happens on land, obviously buildings will come tumbling down, they will implode, the land will open up and it will crash, and whoever is living on there will also get swallowed up in it. And obviously this is just some technical details about, the Richter scale is measured in 0.1. So 9.5 was the highest in the Richter scale. So 8.5 is like 30 degrees less than 9.51 is. So 9.5 was the maximum that the Earth has ever experienced. Okay, so that's just by way of the introduction about another surah that's talking about the end of time. Now, today we're looking at, and linked to it is those last two ayahs that talk about the justice that's going to be meted out now. This is a famous hadith, Sahih Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ once asked the Sahaba, who is the one who is bankrupt? And they said, well, the one without money or goods, because muflis comes from the word fulus, and fulus, is money. So people have this notion that if you are bankrupt, then it means you don't have money. So that was like the traditional sort of answer given to this question. But the Prophet then said, actually, the bankrupt of my nation or my ummah is going to be the one that come the day of judgment, he or she is going to have lots of prayers, fasting, charity, Hajj, Umrah, all good things that you can think of. But at the same time, he or she still insulted others, slandered or backbited others, consumed wealth illegally of others, shedding the blood of others also illegally, and beating others. Now, beating others could be all kinds of abuse, whether it's physical, mental, psychological, verbal, whatever. So all these five types of huge big sins that are committed by us, we're going to be accountable for each of these. So how it's going to work is that anyone that you might have oppressed will be given from your good deeds the value of that insult or that slander or whatever that evil that you did. So your good deeds are going to get lesser and lesser because some of that good deeds are going to be equated to what that insult or slander or whatever is equivalent to, and that amount of good will be taken away from your scale and put on the person you have insulted or slandered as a credit balance to that person, and you're going to show a deficit on your side. So with the result, it can be that you can have been doing lots of good work, but because of the evil we do, our good deeds are getting eroded all the time. And it can happen that we might have a lifelong of so-called good deeds, but we also did so much evil that it's just going to be wiped out. Right? Now, obviously, this is going to be a big day and a very eventful day and very, something that should send shivers down our spine as to what is going to be our state on that day when we're facing Allah with our book of deeds. Right? Now, we need to obviously control our tongues and just be good in whatever we do. And I just want to give you one story, this story about inheritance, which is very touching. A few years ago, one of my good friends passed away, and I went to his memorial service, and it was a hall full of people, and they all were praising him about what he did and all that. And then one family member stood up and said, he was the trustee of our will when our parents died, and he allocated the proportions to all the different family members, and he was using Excel, and Excel tends to round things off, so there was a 32-cent difference on each of the people's, like what they were supposed to get back at the end. And he made this mistake. Everything was distributed to the right people. And later, I don't know, it happened a week or months later, he realized he made a mistake. So he went back to each family member and said, you know what, I'm still owing you 32 cents from this will that I was a trustee of, and I need to execute this. Now, this is an amazing quality that, if we have that kind of like accountability, sense of, consciousness that we mustn't do somebody wrong even to the value of 32 cents. And what is 32 cents today in real terms? But the principle is there that we should be absolutely honest and just in whatever we do. So that is just about the justice that's going to happen, which is talked about in the last two ayat of Surah Al-Zilzaal. Now we move on to today's lesson, which is the catastrophe and the rattling. Now imagine all of us are sleeping one night, comfortable beds, and suddenly you hear a jarring noise at the front door, as if somebody's breaking down your door. Then you hear the windows breaking. Then you hear or you experience the roof above your head collapsing on you. And then you feel the earth opening up and swallowing you, and you going down and you're falling into an abyss. Now, this is what the catastrophe or the rattling noise is about, that one day with the zilzal is going to be also this catastrophic noise, right? And then the Quran talks of this catastrophe. Other names of it is the calamity, the clatter, the crashing blow, the day of noise and clamor, the disaster. All these words apply to what Qaari'ah really means. Right? Then the way the Quran talks of it is First of all, it makes a statement. It just says the catastrophe. Now, it leaves you wondering what's this about? What's the context of this? Then it asks the question, what is this catastrophe? Right? So it makes you start thinking now. And then it goes further. It asks you a second question, what will show you, or what will give you an indication of, or what will give you an understanding of, what is this catastrophe? Right? So it's now grabbed your attention fully to say now, hey, what is this about? Then Allah gives an answer. He says, that day when mankind will be like scattered moths. Now we know a moth is that light, literally weightless insect that at night it goes towards the light of any light that's shining, or comes to your window because you've got a light inside and it's dark outside. Now, we're going to be, when that day happens, we're going to be like scattered moths, moths that have no direction, and we're going to be alone. You won't have family members, one clutching onto the other. No, you're going to be standing on your own, literally on your own feet, if you can stand, of course, if there's ground underneath your feet. But you're going to be like, flying in this cosmos like a little insignificant moth. Right? So that's the kind of what's going to happen to mankind, each individual. Then it talks about the mountains that we know of that are so stable and firm and, solid rock. That thing is going to be shaken to such an extent, it will like move, and it will lift up, and it will become like carded wool now. In the old days, what they used to do is when they used to take the sheep skin off with the wool on it, they used to take a stick and like a kiri almost, and knock that wool so many times in order to get the threads of wool out of it. And after that, that's what ihnil manfush is, carded wool, right? Wool that has been like hit to such an extent that you get the strands of wool coming out of it. And that becomes, the mountains are going to be like that, like literally pulverized to the extent, not so much like powder, but like wool, like they're going to be like strands of, like a black mountain will have black strands, and a white mountain will have white, and green will have green strands. So it will be like a colorful array of wool of all kinds floating amongst the moths. So we and the mountains are going to be hitting each other, and this is going to be the catastrophe, where man and earth is going to like collide, and it's going to be a day like no other. Then it comes back to that same theme that we had in Az-Zilzaal, that as for him whose deeds weigh heavy in the scales, right? Mizan is one scale, Mawazin are plural. So whoever deeds are going to be heavy on that day, he's going to have a pleasing life. Ishati Radia, Ish, like Asha Ish used to love, and Radia is a pleasant or, successful life. So your life in Jannah is going to be really amazing, like nothing you've experienced in this world. But on the other hand, Wama man khaffat, the one whose scales are going to be light, his home, Ummuhu, his mother, Hawiya is the abyss or the canyon, a deep crevice there. His home is going to be perpetually in that abyss. And what will show you or make you understand what is this crevice? Answer is Narun Hamia, a scorching fire or a blazing inferno. So here again, you find that in this surah, maybe I should show you this one because it gives it a bit clearer. We've looked at, in a previous surah, Iqra Bismi, we had the word Qara'a. From there you get Iqra, right? Iqra and Qira'a and all that is to do with reading. Iqra Bismi Rabbika alladhi khalaq, read in the name of your Lord. Then we have another verb called Qara'a with the ayn, not an alif and hamza, right? Qara'a is this word Qaari'ah, which is, Qara means to beat or bang or knock or hit hard or, then asunder, right? And from there you get the word Al Qaari'ah, which is this misfortune or calamity and adversity. So it's another apocalyptic event where it's talking about the destruction of everything that we know of at the end of time. The word Thaqil is heavy. There you get Thaqulat. So as for one whose scales are heavy, right? Thaqil. And then the other one is khafif. So from there you get khaffa. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَفَّتْ مَوَازِينُهُ. So wherever his scales are light, then and that will follow. That consequence of having light not many good actions to your credit. Now, so I think I've explained this first three lines, which is to do with getting our attention, and it's making it very, very serious by repeating it three times over. It makes you think that what is this about, and then Allah gives you the answers about the day when people are going to be like moths, no direction in life, don't know where to go when they're alone. It's going to be dark, and everybody is going to be for themselves, right? And then batha yabuthu is to be scattered. Right? Mabthuth is to be scattered all over. And the Jabal is one mountain, Jibal are plural. So in the Jibal, the mountains are going to be like Ihnil Manfush, like carded wool or streaks of different wool. There's pieces of it all over the shore. Right. Now, coming to this last images that we have here for Ummu Hawiya, that if your scale of deeds is light, then means mother, right? So the we also associate with the womb of the mother, where she carries the child in that womb. So your mother on that day, in other words, your resting place, the place, the cradle from which you came out from, your resting place is going to be this Hawiya. Hawiya is a deep canyon. Now they say the canyon is so deep that in our counting of time, in our measurement of time, it's like if you fall from the top, it takes you like over 70 years to reach the bottom of that particular canyon. And all around that canyon is like flames and fire. So if you're going to be dropped into a blazing canyon, you're going to be in free fall for like 70 years of your life, just to give you a sense of time and counting. And you're going to be burning all the way down. And it's going to continue like it's not there's actually it's a bottomless pit. So even 70 years is maybe like a not the complete statement to understand this thing is going to be a pit that it's like a never-ending free fall in this block of fire, right? And then it asks the question, Wama adraka. This I'm saying Wama adraka, where in verse 3 on top, we got a Wama adraka here, so Ma here, what is it? This normally just here, but they've added the ha to give it a bit more emphasis. And what will make you understand what is it, this Hawiya? Then the explanation comes in. Finally, Narun Hamia. It's a scorching fire or an overwhelming inferno. It's just amazing, right? Now, Huma, this Hamia, Huma is a flare of the sun, just like one sort of literally one flame of the sun is called a Huma. And Hamia is like just so many of those flares together, giving you a sense of Hamia, like a cauldron of fire, just massive, huge fire that you can imagine. Now, one thing we need to notice is there's first of all, there's two questions. There's one in ayah 3 and ayah 10, right? And all of this gives you, also there's a rhyme scheme. I don't know if you noticed it. If you look at the rhyme Qaari'ah, like, that sound, Qaari'ah, then we have Radiyah. Here we have Mawazin, which is a bit different, but then we have Hawiya, which is the same, and Hamiya is also the same. And even here, Mahiya, although it's two different words, but it gives you that same rhyming sound. So if you look at the rhythm in this surah, in the last words that are used, you can see the rhyme scheme forming, and it adds, and embellishes the way the sound of this surah is when you actually recite it. Now, I'm just going to explain something about the sun, and maybe then we'll understand what Narun Hamia is about, right? Now, what are the highest temperatures we know as human beings living on this earth? Now, if you look at today's temperature in Joburg is 25 degrees Celsius. The highest temperature recorded on earth was 57 degrees, which is almost double, a little more. And then we have, in some cases, plasma fires that are fires that have reached temperatures as high as 8,000 degrees Celsius. So you can imagine what kind of fire. It's like a furnace, or maybe where they smell coal, or even more than that, that kind of heat that you can imagine, right? Then they say, if you look at the sun now, and here's pictures of the sun, The temperature on the surface of the sun, just around this area here, is 5,600 degrees Celsius. And then as you go deeper into the belly of the sun, like if you go to the core of the sun, they say the degree of temperature there is 15 million degrees Celsius. Now, you know, when you look at these numbers, you can just say subhanallah at every line almost to think what kind of heat the sun has got. Unfortunately, the sun is, you know, if you look at the size of the sun, they say it's 1,300, and I mean 1,391,000 kilometers across. So if you have to wear a belt, put a belt around the sun, that's the kind of kilometers you're talking of. And this is about 109 times the diameter of the Earth. And the sun weighs like 333,000 times as much as the Earth. And it's so large, the sun, that 1,300,000 planet Earths can fit inside the sun. So if you look at the sun, the scale in terms of what Earth looks like, there's that one little dot there, and here's the magnificent, amazing sun. It's almost 14, what's 1.4, 1,000, I you to sound like somebody, 1,391,000 kilometers away. Okay. Now, it's also, the sun is the center of the solar system. It's massive. It's got hot plasma heated to incandescence by nuclear fusion reaction in its core, radiating the energy from its surface, and ultraviolet rays come out of it. And some of it reaches the Earth, and the sun is actually required for all life to survive on this Earth. We need radiation of a mild degree so that all the vegetation can grow, animals, insects, human beings can live. And obviously, if there's a hole in that cosmos somewhere and more radiation seeps through, that's also the end of our life. We'll be dead meat, right? So obviously it's a delicate balance which we need to maintain. And this is the role of us, that we got to worry about sustainability and the future longevity of life on this earth by consuming resources in a way that doesn't waste, is not wasteful, it's not taking out more than we need, and using it productively and efficiently. And even the recycling wherever possible, we must do as much as that so that we preserve the earth and its natural resources, and we make sure we are not the result of additional global warming forming, so that the earth melts even faster and the glaciers start melting and all the world sea levels rise, and beautiful countries like Maldives actually go underwater because they are literally on the edge of it. They're saying at the rate global warming is happening, some of those islands are going to be totally immersed in water soon because of the rising levels of the waters. So, you know, there are islands that are literally on sea level and little above sea level. Those things are just going to be disappearing very soon if we don't look after the earth. So all in all, I think when you think of that previous verse, the Narun Hamya, you know, this what's a scorching fire and what's an overwhelming inferno? Obviously, Jahannam is going to be far more than what the sun is right now. Now that makes you also wonder what kind of heat Jahannam will have and what kind of end result some of us are going to have in this life. So we need to be very careful of what we do and how we live our lives. All right, and the final slide is the surah we just did recently, which is Al-Aadiyaat. If you look at from line 6, where it says, you know, after swearing by all these horses, with war horses that are running quickly and fast and raising dust and all that, Allah makes a point that says, indeed, man is ungrateful. He doesn't show shukr. He doesn't show gratitude for all the different ni'mats that he's been blessed with. That's one problem with man, ingratitude. And man is a witness to that day in and day out. He forgets to thank Allah. He doesn't make the tasbihs and the reminders of Allah all the time in his life. Then the second problem we've got is that he's got an avid love for wealth. You know, there's such a strong desire to earn and amass more and more and more. He doesn't know where to stop. Right? Hubbil khair is shadid, very, very strong. Then Allah reminds us that don't you know that when you are going to be in the graves are one day going to be bu'thira ma fil qubur, is going to be turned over. We had this same sort of image in the previous surah, right? Where everything in the earth is going to be turned around. And what is going to be what was in the breast, what we try to hide from everybody else deep down in our hearts and our chests, all that is going to be divulged. It's going to come out in a clear book, and we're going to see it with our own eyes as to what we achieved and what we did and what harm we did and what good we caused, or whatever the case is. And obviously on that day, the Lord is going to be best aware of whatever everybody did. So all these things are going to lead to the day of reckoning. That the more you have, the more you're answerable for. And health, whatever you had good and how you used it, you're going to be answered for that. Anything that was in a trust in your keeping and you gave the trust the way it should be, then obviously there's good reward for that. But if you took that trust in your hands and then you subverted things and you chip out things and work things to suit yourself or for your own benefit and favor at the expense of others, you're going to be accountable for it. So every little thing we do in life is going to be weighed, assessed, and reward or punishment is going to be awarded as a result of whatever we have done. Okay, I think that's all for today. So these are the two surahs or rather three that are linked in one way or the other. The next one is also going to be Al-Takathur is coming up, and Al-Qaari'ah is going to come up. I mean, Al-Qaari'ah we just did, but Al-Takathur is going to come up where we talk about wealth there as well. You know, this Hubbul Khairi Shadid is going to come out as a theme in that surah as well. So these 3 or 4 surahs talk about the end of time and the day of reckoning, how we're going to stand one day answering to whatever we achieved in life. May Allah make it an easy reckoning for all of us. We'll end on that note. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wal-Asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu s-salihat, wa tawasaw bil-haqq wa tawasaw bis-sabr.